And good day to you. So today I'm going to be going through a code for a basic Gopher in Python using TCP and the sockets library, as well as a basic server. I will take a slight detour in talking about where the Gopher program came from, because it just got completely sidetracked and fascinated by this piece of history and internet law that most people don't know about. So Python makes servers easy. It's probably about 11 lines of code to implement. We're going to use the library socket to implement a Gopher. It's Telnet era tech, though the modern equivalent might be to talk about a API or advanced programmatic interface. What this will do will connect to a host, request a file, and print out line by line the file received. That's the code. You create the function Gopher. You import socket and systems, and you set the port to 70 because that's Gopher actually has an assigned port. One of the reasons why I went and looked it up and was a bit interested in what this thing was. Line of code S equals socket. Establishes the connection. That'll be something hopefully we can look into further detail. You can see that it will then use the site name to go and connect to that IP address, and will connect to it on a port, which is 70 in this case. Then sends a request for a file name, and then we'll just cycle through that loop, writing out each line of the received file to the console. So that's all very simple. It shows you how really simple TCP can be in Python. It's nothing to write home about. The Gopher protocol is a bit of a weird, interesting thing. I can't find a place to demonstrate using that Gopher protocol. We all nowadays use APIs, which, as I understand it, are basically the same, but with additional security steps. So if you wanted to adapt that into connecting to two computers and sharing a file, could still do it. And at one point the Gopher protocol was going to be adopted instead of HTTP. Well, not HTTP, I've put the wrong thing there, the World Wide Web. So the World Wide Web, as you go onto your browser and connect to a website, this would have been something that would have been what you'd have instead. And you'd have had a file system the same way you had on your Windows, but those files would just happen to be sitting on somebody else's PC. And this is the interesting thing: it's genuinely somebody else's PC. It was never intended to be a mainframe somewhere. It was a web of people's PCs with files that they were hosting and making available to anybody and anyone who wanted to access them. And I think how decentralized that would have been, and think how much of a different internet would have been if you, instead of going through these websites and that are centrally hosted by a DNS server and the like, you just could search using this Gopher thing to go and find these files stored on other people's PCs. A mad concept, and I've not seen it running, but the university tried to stop its development, and then when it was really successful, because the people who developed it chucked it on the internet, they tried to charge for it. So that killed it. That's the only slide I can find about Gopher, and it comes from the 1989 proposal for its use. So weird, interesting. The internet could have been a different place, and the reason it sort of interests me is all the people talking about the sort of tech giants nowadays and the sort of way we centralize the internet on a set of servers and mainframes. One, the concept of a server came from Gopher, and two, Gopher was meant to be mainframeless, and so that just blew my mind a little bit. And then talking about the server, whenever you're connecting to something, you have to have some computer somewhere that's listening and looking at that port, waiting for something to come in. As said previously, the whole port setup is controlling what information is received from the internet and how it then gets handled by the CPU to pass on to the programs running in the background and inform them that they've got a message from the internet. The concept of server came from the idea of, with Gopher, you would connect to a port and a host who would then serve you the file that you're asking for. This is the basic code for a basic Python server. Again, just look how small it is. The code here, you have to import the socket, and the host being blank means it will just connect to anything that gets sent to it. So it won't have any rules for saying only connect to these IP addresses, which there's one reason this is not being run on my computer. Port anything above 1024 is okay. And then you can sort of see in the same setup, you can see how easy it is to set up a Python socket, and that's a stack with the security already in. And you can see that it gets bind to a port, and it's set to listen. So you then, with those 4 lines in the middle with S, you're setting up a socket, you're setting up to listen, and then when it receives something, which is the while true bit, it will accept the connection, it will make a file, and it will write to that file a hello, welcome. I think that the client adder is a bug because I haven't initialized that or given it a number. It will write. It will tell. It will reply, and write. Please enter a string. It will strip out whatever it receives back from the other side. It will reply back telling it the size of the file. I didn't know what else to write, and then it closes the file and the socket. And those 2 last things are important because within Python that tells the other side, goodbye, I'm done talking to you, go away. And if you didn't do that, then you'd end up with a lot of people and connections just connected to your computer and waiting for it to do something, and that would never happen. I mean, I'm sure it wouldn't be disastrous, but I'm pretty sure it's not helpful. And the other side of things is you'd end up with a set of connections and sockets which Python would just be hanging on to and waiting on and not doing anything about because it's done its initial meet and greet and done nothing else. But you can sort of see that write and read process backwards and forwards is the basic setup for text messaging and all these other things that will then come later, because you've got this setup of you've connected 2 computers using these this setup, and then they're able to send information backwards and forwards, and this server is holding a made file which it's using as the basis of the conversation it's having, for lack of a better term. Now, these are my first attempts at getting my head around how to use servers, and as previously said, I use this as a method of learning because I think if I can explain it to somebody else, I probably understood it. So any mistakes I've made, please forgive me and let me know. But I was really shocked how simple this was to sort of set up your own server in Python, your own connections, and write them. I don't think that's complicated at all. I think that's something that most people could manage if they were given a brief introduction. I'm kind of surprised that we don't do it more often, considering we have all these problems in businesses where the real problem is that they can't send information between companies, and they have to they email a file every single day or something strange. But it's interesting for me. This is a completely different view of how the internet could have been structured. It's probably massively less secure, but it's completely decentralized, and there's encryption in the stack. It's TCP, the same as what you get on the World Wide Web. It's just there was potentially no server with the Gopher setup. Today we have dedicated servers, and this was challenging for me, because it really does sit there and say a server's there's nothing special about it, that it could be any PC. We've got down to the view that it must be a powerful computer, and it must be centralized, and it must be what we call a mainframe, because it's main and it's a frame or something. I don't know where that comes from. But this sort of shocked me and interests me, that given that in our day and age we talk about cryptocurrencies and blockchain as if they're the first time anybody's thought of a way to do decentralized communications, and back in the 80s his was something that just did it. I found it very interesting, and something to make you think about what you could do with networking if you in Python if you used it on your own time. So anyway, many thanks, have a good day. Thanks, bye.